It's been a minute, but I'm back with episode 24, The Core of Season 2, Generation 1 of the Transformers. So let's get after it. This is Energon Entries. Welcome back to Energon Entries, everybody. Hope this finds everybody well. As always, this is your host, Matt Freites, and I do apologize. It's been a while since we have done an episode. It's so long that I have to say Happy New Year to everybody who is listening. I just want to say that the end of the year ended up being very challenging for me, as you know, and I think I spoke about this on the last episode. My parents had a lot going on, and by the time I knew it, 2024 was over. I hope you had a great holiday season, and it was restful, and you are ready to kick some ass in 2025. Before we get to the meat of this episode, I do want to say that a listener of the show reached out to me in December to let me know that she and her kids listen to this show every single week. And I just am amazed by this because I made this as an experiment. It's something that I do for fun. Never in 1,000 years did I think that anybody would reach out to tell me that they sit around it like a campfire and listen to what I have to say about a 40-year-old show. But that's not really what's important, and while I do thank her and her family for listening, what is important is that she let me know that one of her kids recently had a birthday in December. And so, Freddie, from me to you, I hope you had a happy birthday. I hope that you are enjoying listening to this, and I thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you enjoy it. And with that, let's get to the episode recap. The episode begins with the Constructicons drilling underground, aiming to tap into the Earth's molten core to provide the Decepticons with limitless geothermal energy. Despite Starscream's concerns about potentially causing Earth's destruction, Megatron has already set up a space bridge for an escape to Cybertron if needed. Meanwhile, nearby Autobots stumble upon the drilling operation, but a battle with Devastator forces them to retreat. Back at the Autobot base, Wheeljack and Chip Chase present Dominator discs to take control of Devastator, which Prime approves for deployment. The Autobots manage to plant the discs on each Constructicon, allowing them to briefly control Devastator. However, Megatron soon overrides the discs, causing Devastator to go berserk, attacking both Autobots and Decepticons alike as the drill nears Earth's core, triggering earthquakes. As the cave begins to collapse, Megatron reluctantly hands control back to Wheeljack, who restores Devastator to normal. Devastator then destroys the drill, saving Earth, though he's disappointed Megatron didn't stay behind. The episode ends with Chip Chase expressing hope that one day Devastator might join the Autobots, to which Optimus Prime replies that the future is built on dreams. Okay, so it has been a minute since we have reviewed an episode, and to be fully transparent, it's been a while since I watched this episode, but we're going to start, as always, with my non-robot thoughts. So this plot really deviated from a recent trend that we saw of being in outer space and focusing on singular robots. I've been wondering this a while, and it probably would be easy enough for me to look it up, but I do wonder if all of these are out of order from how they originally were aired, because I said it seemed like we were on a trend that these episodes were taking place off Earth and we're really focusing on one singular Autobot and one singular Decepticon. This one, it seems like the entirety of both teams was involved, and it sort of strayed from what we've seen the last few episodes. Now, the Decepticons always seem to be able to make underground layers without any detection. This is something I've talked about before, but it's amazing to me that we haven't figured out a way to find all of these underground layers that they keep building. And not only underground layers, but they seem to be able to do these really big things that go completely undetected. This time, though, in order to hide things, they used holograms, and it was really a great idea. They were taking something from Hound's book because, as you know, I call him one of the most underrated Autobots in the entire collective, and his holograms have saved them more than once. But Megatron having a backup space bridge in the event of catastrophe is thinking ahead. This is something he hasn't really done, and I have made comments before about, well, how does he think he's going to get out of this if something goes wrong? If you recall, he didn't do that in an earlier 3-part episode where many things took place. I believe the world was ending, and the Decepticons really didn't have any type of escape plan from Earth. This time, thinking ahead, it is nice to see that continuity in this show. But the Decepticons just keep upping the ante, and now they're doing everything that they can, even going to the Earth's core. How much further are they going to go? The sun wasn't enough when they tried to tap into that. Now they're going to try to tap into the Earth. Where are they going to go after this? And how does the Earth continue to come back from all of these things? You can't really undo drilling to the Earth's core. And I think I said that about the sun too. Isn't there damage, long-term damage that would happen? Isn't the Earth not going to be the same? Apparently not, and this show just kind of shows Earth is going to survive no matter what. How about the humans? Hey, guess what? We have a Chip Chase sighting. It has been a while, and that's why I say I think that this episode that I'm watching is out of order. He has a great plan as always, though. It is nice to see him instead of Spike, because Spike never has a good plan. Chip Chase and Carly, two of my favorite humans in the entire show. I'm not really sure why, but it seems like Chip was animated in this episode to look a little bit older than he had in previous appearances. Maybe it's because there was a long period of time between the times that I saw him on the show. To me, he looked a little bit more distinguished and adult-like than he had originally. Now, the Autobots brought Chip to the final battle. To me, that seems highly irresponsible. I understand that he is very, very smart, but Optimus Prime not only brought him to the battle, but was carrying Chip in his arms right before the battle started. That really doesn't seem like a good idea, and it's putting humans needlessly in harm's way when the Autobots are all about saving the humans. And Chip is so unlike Spike. Even if he gets himself into trouble, he gets himself out of trouble. And it's nice and refreshing because the Autobots have to waste a lot of time helping out Spike when they really could be focusing on the mission at hand. And speaking of the Autobots, I talked earlier about the fact that this episode seemed like it broke from trends, and this was an entire OG Season 1 Autobot crew in this episode. We even had a Mirage sighting, and he was using his ability to be invisible, and it came in handy. Same with Jazz's light show, and they pull an Empire Strikes Back and take down Devastator by tying up his feet, much like they did the AT-ATs in Empire Strikes Back. If you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, I don't know what to tell you, it's 50 years old. But their plan to basically bug the Constructicons, I thought at its core was a good one. But of course, they can't really do it without being seen by the Decepticons or without their plan actually being foiled in some way. I know that that's what keeps the show going. I totally get it. It just would be nice if they had a plan that actually worked for once, and it seemed like a lot of times it feels like the Autobots' plans end up having to have a plan B, C, D, E, F to work. Whatever, it is what it is. Of course, Megatron is one step ahead and knew the Autobots' plans to take over Devastator right away. How? I have no idea. They didn't really make reference to it. He was on screen, and then all of a sudden he knew, and he knew how to foil the plan. It is what it is. There's no continuity here. He just had knowledge, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but Megatron, always a step ahead. The Autobots are worried about frying Devastator's logic chips, and it's noble to think that way, but also, if Devastator is done for good, how is that bad for them long term? I understand that Optimus Prime and the Autobots are trying to be good, and they don't want to actively kill anybody or anything, but look, dude, Devastator is one of your biggest problems, and if you have a plan to take him over, it doesn't work, and in doing so, you essentially turn him into a vegetable, so be it. You don't have to worry about him anymore, but as we all know, Megatron will come up with a new plan to come up with some new robot, and they'll have to figure it out anyway. But still, a noble pursuit, but just not the smartest pursuit in my opinion. Optimus Prime is a really smart dude, and I like him a lot. But when he was thinking that the Decepticons were trapped, how many times has that happened in this show? I mean, if you've been watching along with me, how many times has it happened? And I kind of laughed out loud. I had to laugh out loud because he said, oh, they're trapped. We don't have to worry about them. Bro, that's happened a lot. So maybe, just maybe, don't assume that they're done because they've never been done. How many times is it going to take him to not be so naive? I don't know. Great leader, great robot, just has this deficiency where he seems to think that the simplest way to get rid of the Decepticons is going to keep them down forever. It just never is, so don't believe the hype, dude. And the Decepticons. The Constructicons have such a love-hate relationship with each other, and that makes sense. there are a large group of them. They are Decepticons, they're bad guys. And so, of course, each one of them is going to bicker with each other. Now, each one of them has their own strengths, and they all work well together in that regard. They each have their, I don't know how to describe it, they each have their role. Hook, to me, clearly thinks he is the smartest one. And maybe he is, but he seems to outwardly think that. Long Haul, with a New York accent being a dump truck, I love it. To me, it fits his job. It fits the way that he is supposed to be. He's rugged, and I think that people from New York have a rugged nature to them, and I do like that. The excitement that the Constructicons show at the beginning, merging into Devastator, is actually kind of cute. I mean, it's their big superpower. So when they get a chance to do it, when they're told to do it, they're almost given permission, and they have a kid like, yes! And they actually merge into him, and it's really cute. The concept of Devastator, when he is in his large robot form, being less intelligent combined than they are when they're individuals, to me is on display here, because he can't overcome the competing signals from each side's attempt to control him. His brain is weakened in this larger state, and that's something that has been talked about in lore a lot, and you can kind of see it here, and it makes sense. You take 6 really, really smart robots individually and combine them into one collective. This isn't the Borg from Star Trek. If you don't know that reference, I'm sorry, but basically, they're just not as smart together as they are separately, and that was seen here. We can't have an episode without Starscream dropping the ball in some way. However, Starscream started dropping some science knowledge on us, and that fits what they have told us about him before, this scientist explorer background that they gave him in one of the first episodes in season 1. I'm pretty sure it was when they saw Skyfire or found Skyfire that they talked about that background. I like that they kind of put that here. Laserbeak, though, always successful spying on the Autobots, even though they have no secrets to hide from the Decepticons this time. He's out there trying to find him anyway. They never know he's there. Laserbeak, easily the most successful Decepticon, or hell, Transformer out there. Devastator's scale, as it always is, very weird throughout this episode, and that stays true to what we've seen in previous episodes. Sometimes he looked massive compared to the Autobots. Other times, he was just a hair taller than them and looked a little bit more normal size. It is what it is. Megatron, though, we talked about Starscream dropping the ball. Megatron calling Starscream a terrible actor and a simpleton in the same sentence. Boy, oh boy. That is brutal, but Starscream deserves it. But Megatron shows real leadership by letting the Autobots help them because he knows that everybody is in danger if they don't get this under control. And his saying he was doing this for his fellow Decepticons tells me there is a heart somewhere. And I hope one day we do get a little bit more of a backstory about Megatron and how he became so evil. He does clearly care about his troops, even if it is only because he wants the numbers. But I actually thought that was pretty cool, and it was great to hear him say that. Animation errors. There was actually kind of a lot in here that I saw, but there was a voice change. The opening scene had Scrapper's voice as Scavengers in transform mode, kind of weird. In the skirmish scene between Devastator and the small group of Autobots, which I realize is kind of like the entire episode, but bear with me here. The cutscene shows Mirage walking invisibly through the drilling the Decepticons are doing, and it shows the Constructicons near the drill, but then it cuts immediately to the skirmish and Devastator is there. The Constructicons can't be in 2 places at once, and yet here they seem to be. Later on in the episode, either Prowl was animated all gray like Bluestreak, or they used Prowl's voice on Bluestreak. Either way, it stuck out to me that they didn't have the right voice with the right character. And Megatron's back cannon at one point was all dark gray instead of his usual body color. So those were some of the things that I found in this episode, more so than usual. Perhaps I was paying attention. Overall, very much an old-school Transformers episode, like I said. No newer Autobots or Decepticons to be found. The plot was much more standard and vanilla compared to the previous episodes we have reviewed recently. It was fun, but somewhat of a convoluted plot, a lot to fit in a short time frame. To me, something felt different about the animation in this one, not consistent with the episodes leading up to it. If I cared, I'd probably look into the studios that were used, but honestly, somebody else is going to tell me about it, and it's just not something that really I need to know for this show. It's just something that I noticed. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody who listened to the show in 2024. However you found it, however long you've been listening, it means a lot to me that you take the time out. I again want to shout out listeners who have contacted me. It's amazing. And to know that people are listening to this as a family, it just blows my mind. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at EnergonEntriesPod is the handle to do so. If you are listening, Apple, Spotify, please give a rating. Let's start the new year off right. Next episode, we're going to talk about episode 25 called Make Tracks. Hope this finds everybody well. I hope this finds everybody safe. And I'll talk to you next time. Happy New Year, everybody. This is Energon Entries. The opinions and viewpoints expressed on Energon Entries are those of Matt Frates and his guests and not necessarily those of the Matty Ice Media Network. Energon Entries is exclusively owned by Matt Frates and is brought to you by the Matty Ice Media Network.